Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Reality Check, where I take a look at movies, video games, TV shows, etc., and overanalyze them to the point where I ruin it for everybody. Today's topic is Batman, the husky-voiced billionaire with way too much time on his hands. With the somewhat recent release of the Lego Batman movie, not at all. Okay, I'm sorry, when I started this video it was January. It took a while to do. Anywho, with it being the second highest rated Batman movie on Rotten Tomatoes, I want to talk about... Wait, really? The movie that has Legos is higher rated than almost all of the Batman movies? Man, DC's gotta get it together. Well, I guess maybe both DC's. After that shameful political joke, I want to talk about the movie that sits at the number 1 slot, The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is arguably one of the best superhero movies ever made, with a great plotline, great effects, and great performances, especially that of Heath Ledger as the Joker. But there was something that I saw that I wanted to take a look at. Now before I go on, a spoiler warning is in order. If you haven't seen The Dark Knight, watch it and come back. It's $4 or in on Amazon, so go watch it. Okay, is everybody good? Great, let's continue. The scene that I wanted to take a closer look at would be the death of Rachel and the rise of Two-Face. Yeah, I said there was going to be a spoiler. Really quickly, let's refresh on what happens. The Joker reveals to Batman and the police that Harvey Dent and Rachel Dawes are at 2 different locations. Harvey and Rachel wake up to see that they are tied to chairs and surrounded by barrels that are rigged to blow. Batman rushes to save Rachel while the police and Gordon race to save Harvey. Batman reaches the location, but finds out that the Joker had tricked them and switched the locations. He finds Harvey laying on the ground in a puddle of fuel. Gordon and the police pull up to the warehouse that Rachel is trapped in, only to see it explode. We cut back to Batman as he pulls Harvey out of the building right before it blows up. However, Dent's face doesn't escape unharmed and is lit on fire and extremely burned. Now, I'm not wondering when your face gets lit on fire what would happen, because everyone knows that fire equals bad stuff. I'm wondering if it would even be possible for Harvey to be lit on fire in the first place. In order to tackle this question, we're going to need to split this question into 2 sections. First, is it possible, in the circumstances given, for his face to be lit on fire? Secondly, would the explosion even kill him? In order to answer the first part, we need to figure out what's in the barrels. In the scene with Dent, it's never explicitly said. Some people might think it's gasoline that's splashed on his face. I know that's why I thought. A highly flammable liquid that's used in a Hollywood explosion sounds like something that could be used. However, we know it's actually diesel. How do we know? Well, in the infamous fairy/social experiment scene, the Joker says this.
Through the magic of diesel fuel and ammonium nitrate,
I'm ready right now to blow you all sky high.
Although this is an entirely different scene, we know this is the exact same bomb used to kill Rachel and burn Harvey. First, the barrels in Dent's room are rigged the exact same way as on the boat. A car battery with 55-gallon barrels with wires running in and out of each. Secondly, it's in the script. So yeah, no real speculation needed for it. It says, Dent watches the open barrel spew diesel fuel around him. And that changes everything if you thought it was gasoline. So, let's analyze diesel fuel. Well, I say analyze, but we don't have to get too deep into it. Basically, diesel is a relatively hard fuel to ignite at room temperature. This is mainly because of 2 things. 1. Diesel has a high flash point for a fuel, which is the lowest temperature the vapors of a flammable liquid can be ignited at, with it being 52 degrees Celsius or 126 degrees Fahrenheit, which means it's harder to ignite. 2, and the more important one, is that diesel doesn't evaporate readily. This is because it's made of longer molecules, making it a heavier fuel. Now let's compare that to gasoline, the fuel that I brought up earlier. Gasoline evaporates very quickly, and combined with its low flash point, which is around negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 65 degrees Celsius, makes it very dangerous and volatile. That's why if you throw a match at a puddle of gasoline, it goes up with a huge whoosh. Well, if you throw a match at a puddle of diesel, it does nothing. The only way to ignite diesel without it naturally evaporating, which takes a while by the way, is to get it hot enough to evaporate the liquid and vaporize it, aka turn it into a mist. and either ignite it with a spark or compress the vapor enough to ignite it, like in a diesel engine. So, for his face to be on fire, the blast from the explosion needs to be hot enough to vaporize the diesel on his face, but that requires a lot of heat and or compression. But before seeing the requirements for what this needs to be, let's see what the explosion has to offer. However, right now, it's not looking too good. In order to answer this, we need to move on to the second part, which is calculating how much damage the bomb would do. After doing the research, it is terrifying. We already know what's in the bomb from the ferry scene from earlier. So after a quick Google search of ammonium nitrate and diesel fuel, the first result is ANFO. ANFO stands for ammonium nitrate fuel oil, and is a popular explosive. It's commonly used for mining, quarrying, and terrorism. Great. But it makes sense why the Joker would use it now. It's actually a relatively easy bomb to make. All you need is... Oh my goodness, I realized I'm gonna be put on some sort of NSA watch list or something. No joke, my search history is full of how to make ANFO and how fertilizer can be explosive. If someone just looked at this with no context whatsoever, they're gonna think I'm a seriously troubled individual. Anyway, all we need to do is count the number of barrels and see how big the explosion would be, right? And not quite. See, ANFO is made up about 95% ammonium nitrate and 5% diesel fuel. But wait, when Dent knocks the barrel over, we don't see a sludge or the pellets of a normal ANFO. We see straight diesel. And we can't just say it's one barrel that has diesel in it while all the others have ANFO, because that barrel is wired too. See? Wires. So is the barrel just diesel? Well, then that would mean A, the Joker is lying and there's no ammonium nitrate in the barrel, which is a pretty pointless and precise thing to lie about. And B, all my research into ANFO is for naught, and I refuse to believe either of these things. So, while this is good for the filmmakers because it means there aren't a metric ton of explosives ready to blow up everything in Gotham, it's bad for me. Why, you ask? Well, I have no idea how much ANFO is in any given barrel. There's nothing in the script, nothing in the movie, and nothing on the website I'm copying all my information from. So, time for speculation. We know there is ANFO in the barrel, but we know that there is also diesel. So, the only way to have diesel and ANFO in the same barrel at the same time without them mixing is to have a bag of ANFO suspended in the diesel. And this inference makes sense. In the movie, we see a fiery explosion. However, ANFO by itself does not create a fiery explosion. Now that we have an assumption on what the bomb looks like, we can calculate the explosion. However, we still don't know how much ANFO is in each barrel, but we can estimate. I'm going to calculate 1% of the barrel being filled with ANFO, which means a best case scenario for Dent, to 10%, which is an okay amount for my case. So, on to counting the barrels, figuring out how much ANFO are in each one, and getting how big this explosion is. As hard as all the other research has been, this shouldn't be too difficult. Alright, just need to look up Dark Knight Rachel death scene and count the barrels. Oh dear God, are you kidding me? Nothing can be easy, can it? Well, time for estimation because I will never figure out the exact number of barrels that are in that room based on this picture. And just to let you know, I couldn't find it online either. So, after counting about 60 barrels in the front half of the room, we can guess about 60 in the back of the room, and maybe 10 barrels that are not shown or hidden or that I missed in the scene. So, about 130 barrels in that room with Dent. Now, math. You don't want to hear me do this because it will be super boring. I've already dragged you through the mud with all the science gobbledygook, so I'll just do the math. And holy Dent and Batman should be incredibly not alive. Let's look at one of the best case scenarios for me, which is about 1/10 of the bomb being ANFO. After using the bulk density of the explosive grade ANFO to figure out how many kilograms are in the barrel, and then converting it to pounds for all the Americans out there, I got about 17.5 kilograms, or about 38.6 pounds of just the explosive. However, there is approximately 130 barrels, which means 2,274 kilograms, or 5,012 pounds of ANFO. Holy cow, that's a lot. That's equivalent to 8.368 gigajoules, or 2 tons of TNT. Oh my goodness, and that's just the ANFO. This would mean, even without the diesel, this scenario should leave a smoking crater where that building once was, and Dent and Batman should be burning corpses. You know how I said the filmmakers wouldn't have a metric ton of explosives? Yeah, I lied. Okay, after that terrifying prospect, let's go a little bit smaller. Okay, let's go to Dent's best scenario now, which would be about 1% of the barrels being filled with ANFO, which would be about 2 kilograms or 4 pounds per barrel, which is something that you can hold in one hand. Okay, reasonable. So it shouldn't be that bad, right? Wrong. If you've done the math in your head, then you know that there are still 500 pounds of ANFO in that room, even with a super small amount of it per barrel. And this is best case scenario. And just so that you weren't convinced that Dent should be dead from this explosion, let me show you what would happen in a 500-pound ANFO explosion. Now, I didn't do the math for this because I didn't have to. Thanks to the awesome show known as Mythbusters, we could see what happens during it. During the episode Knock Your Socks Off, the team tested whether the saying was true or not. So they, in total Mythbuster style, tried to see if an explosion of 500 pounds of ANFO could confirm it. In the setup, they had rupture discs to see if the person would die. And then this awesomeness happened. So after that, when they checked the discs, they saw that they were burst up to 35 feet, which means if you were less than or about 35 feet away, you'd be dead. And with Batman having about 15 seconds to drag Dent out, we can give him about 50 feet away. So wait, the explosion wouldn't kill him. But you know what would? The building. Yep, deadly shrapnel, or heck, even the entire building falling on them is also a component that could kill them. Oh, and by the way, if you want to know, the myth was busted. So forget trying to find the requirements Diesel has to be in order to instantaneously be vaporized, and if Dent's face is burned, Dent and Batman would be dead, either from the heat of the explosion, the shockwave from the explosion, or the crumbling building. So nice try, filmmakers, but if your bomb is able to demolish a warehouse and have the capability of blowing a ferry
Sky high.
don't try to BS your way into somehow making Dent and Batman live. Okay, I'm cool. So this is Jackson checking out. Thanks for watching.